testing. JB here, December 12th, 2023. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. About 2:45 here on this fine Tuesday, right ahead of the Fed decision tomorrow. So I just want to talk about a couple things. It's going to be really quick. A lot of the other stuff I've talked about last week I would just be regurgitating some of my thoughts on some of these names. But some of the new ones, first I'll talk about DOCU, CHWY, which I added some calls yesterday, Intuitive Surgical, which is a name I traded in November and back in August for decent gains, and go from there. So first I'll talk about DOCU. I've been putting on the watch list for the last week and a half or so around these catch-up plays, names that have underperformed the S&P or the overall market, and I think that people are going to start repositioning for outperformance into the end of the year and then into 2024. The closer we get to the next week and a half, you'll start hearing more about the Santa rally, a historically strong performing period where you see some of these names that probably have been, tax loss selling, things like that, start to come back to life. So I'm not saying DOCU is going to explode, into the mid 60s, but I think there's an opportunity. I was watching it yesterday. I almost looked at the 55 calls. I think they were 20 cents. The company reported earnings last week. It was a mixed bag, but good results. Best at estimates. But people are concerned because when you look at a company like DOCU, they think there's no moat around the business. I mean, there's no patent on the signature, right? But you need technology, you need partners, you need a lot of folks signed up so that it becomes commonplace, right? So now if you do a real estate transaction or any kind of legal transaction, typically a majority of those transactions will involve some kind of DOCU document. So I'm not going to sit here and say I gotta say hi to Z because Z's in the room. I'm not going to say that it's going to head back to its COVID levels. Let me just see what he just posted on here. Sorry, folks. So, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to go back to its COVID levels. You take a look what COVID did. It kind of accelerated the adoption of DOCU. People don't want to touch pens, want to wear masks, COVID, so on and so forth. But I think there's an opportunity here. But then you start looking at what is that? The market for signatures, right? What's the total addressable market? So they're going to have to continue to look for avenues outside their traditional base, right? If you're just doing signing legal documents, there's that has a limited addressable market. So whether that's working into some kind of infrastructure or some kind of if they're an acquisition target, I don't know. The good thing is there's insider buys over the last year, and I just think it heads higher. So able to lock some of my strikes in for over 100%. I'll probably continue to hold the calls at least through today, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I think it had high 50s, maybe 60 this week. If it continues to go, maybe there's a lot of empty. I put it on the watch list. There's a lot of air. Let's see if I can pull up the chart. If you look at DOCU, between its gap from 70 all the way down to its lows under 40, there's a lot of room in there. So I'm not saying it's going to 65, $70, but it's certainly a possibility. All right, so that's so that's DOCU. So let's go on to Nikola. Is he in the? It looks like he's on the audio. So Nikola, great story, right? So here's one of those names going nuts with all the EV craze, Tesla, blah, blah, blah. And I just stumbled upon it, and I saw people posting on FinTwit, and then the more I dug into it, I said, this is a scam. This guy's a fraud. And I wrote a piece, put it on Reddit. There were reporters sending emails to me, and I responded, but turns out Hindenburg Research got the scoop, put out a nice piece, and the rest is history. But sometimes when it's, you can kind of sense when things stink. And so finally, Trevor Milton, who I just don't understand how the company still exists, because the company, Nikola, was created on lies and fraud. So if companies create on lies and fraud and people have been enriched based on those lies and fraud, how does it still exist? So those are the questions I never, I still can't wrap my head around and get answers for. But finally, it looks like he's been sentenced to 11 years. Gosh, I remember he used to post these Instagram videos. He would say Trevor with trolls, and he would bash all the trolls on him. But a lot of it was so obvious. I remember the first year as a company, their first earnings report, they reported $1.7 million in revenues, and the revenues was he used their company to put solar panels on his mansion. I was like, what? And then there's other crazy stuff. I mean, I don't want to go on a rant here on Nikola, but I mean, he had a private jet, and those costs were associated with Nikola too. So like, if you're a publicly traded company, you have your shareholders are your employees. Your shareholders are the most important people, right? Employees, shareholders, customers. Those are like your three most important people. And here is Trevor Milton flying on private jets to go back and forth from his mansion. I mean, does that make sense as a company to be paying that expense? So I guess it did for him because he doesn't care. But if you're a publicly traded company, no, you're here for profit. You're here to make your shareholders money, your customers happy, and your employees happy. And he didn't do any of those things. Anyway, rants for other days. But finally, it looks like, I had puts on that name. The stock was halted. One of those crazy fiascos. But vindicated, I guess is the word. All right, so that's Nikola, DocuSign. Oh, Intuitive Surgical. I put on the watch list this morning. I traded back in August. I went from 288 all the way up to 317 or so. Made some, I don't know if it was 10, 12 bags on the calls. Then back in November, did similar move to start the week. And then yesterday, I'm watching. I said it's going to do the same thing. So went and added some strikes. I think it was 311? I have to go back and look. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to do the same $35, $40 move, but I think there's an opportunity to play it at least to 330, have the 330 strikes. Those are back in the green this afternoon. At some point, I look to lock some in for profits when I get the chance. A lot of these medtech names have been destroyed just on that premise of the GLP-1 drugs, which, again, is kind of mind-boggling because when you look at the GLP-1 drugs, you would think, how does that really have an impact on the medtech space? Are people, less people going to have surgeries, gastric bypass? I don't know. But then on the flip side, maybe they're going to be doing more activities. So maybe there's going to be more broken bones and surgeries of that nature. But great story, and fundamentally sound. Billions in cash. I think it's $9 billion active buyback program. It's the future of surgery. They always have. Johnson & Johnson has been touting this robotic surgery option, which hasn't come to market. It keeps getting pushed back. So, I think it trades up near 330. So I got those strikes. At some point, I locked those in. That's kind of the thought process there. The thing is, it goes, I think it went 319.80 yesterday. Let's see, I don't even have it up here. 319.85. And then it goes all the way down into 314, 315. So I get messages and, some folks email you holding. It goes up and down. So it's very easy to get shaken out. And then the next day, all it has to do is move 1.5%, 2%. The calls are back in the green, which, it's up 1.75% here. I think it heads to 330. So that's Intuitive Surgical. What else did I have here on the talk list? CHWY. CHWY has their inaugural Investor Day Thursday. CHWY from the Ryan Cohen infamy, the now chairman of GameStop. Stock has been destroyed. I think it was in mid-30s to start the year. It was much higher back in 2022, and obviously with COVID, you take a look at a company like CHWY, and people always have that the question mark around CHWY. How are they going to be profitable in the face of all these threats? Amazon sells the same pet products they do, things like that, but they've been able to overcome that. So typically when you see these investor days, it's not like when they, and they just had earnings last week. So it's not like the investor day is going to be one of these sombering moments where they say, oh, business is horrible. No, it's going to be a big, cheerleading fest where You know, they're going to tout all the great things they're doing. And I think their earnings last week was kind of a reset. So when you take a look where the stock is getting destroyed, finally, you know, they report earnings last week. The stock sold off after the earnings and then bounced back into the 19s. So kind of to me, it looks like maybe that was the reset button. And I think that bodes well. And I think it trades into the mid to high 20s in the coming weeks. January strikes. I know it sold off down almost 19, 17 this morning. I think it heads back into the 20s, hopefully by the end of today. And then I think it heads higher into January. And at some point, I look to lock some of the strikes in to cover costs. So that's 11-year sentence. Nice. So that's CHWY. Not really going to talk here about WW. I think the 200-day moving average is 793 now. You know my thoughts here. I think it's, you know, Roku is to content that WW is going to be to health. And that's probably going to take some time to play out. And I still think folks don't realize the potential. But unfortunately, I can have an opinion or thought on a stock and it won't matter, right? Because here it is trading at $7. It was near $13 back in October. I'll continue to hold strikes. Once it breaks the 200-day moving average 793, I'll look to get some more strikes there. VKTX up 42% last week, 42 or so. A lot of forward catalysts. Well, you had Barron's with the positive article. You had the Roche acquisition of a privately traded GLP-1 company in a phase 1 study, which VKTX phase 2, which blows my mind. And then you have some analysts coming out with some positive commentary saying, hey, we see it as an attractive obesity target. So I think there was another name, ticker ALT, that had phase 1 data, was Altimmune. So, I mean, there's a lot of names in these space, and they go up and down. So yesterday you saw LLY and MVO sell off, which MVO closed over 2% to the downside. LLY was down over, it was like 1.5%, 2%, but then recouped some of those, most of the losses. VKTX, I think it heads into the 20s, if 25 or so into 2024. You know, people ask why I locked some of my calls in. You know, I think the last strikes I got, was it Friday? I locked some of my the last of my January 25s for 100%. I'm like, you think it's going higher? Why would you sell? Because it's very volatile. And especially with options, the premiums can evaporate pretty quickly. So I'd rather lock the profits in, hold some of my freebies, still have some January strikes, have some of my freebie March strikes, and I'll continue to hold those for higher. VKTX. Trupanion, not much to say here on Trupanion either. All the way over $30 yesterday, came back down. I think it was $27.98 this morning. Yeah, I mean, great story. Well, at some points yesterday, it was a $1.2 billion company, does over $1 billion in revenues, 40% short interest. I don't get it. Like, I mean, unless you think everybody's going to file a pet claim at the same time and they're going to get reimbursed, and maybe there's a bear case there. I just don't get it. But still like this trend line. I put on let's see if I can pull the chart. I think it heads much higher into at least in the next week or two. I think it heads over 30, back over 30 before the week is out. That's Trupanion. So two other things. The good news is bad news situation. You know, we had the jobs report on Friday. Another one of those data points that showed, wow, things are great. So typically what's happened over the last 12 months or 12 to 18 months is every time there's positive news, it's bad for the markets. That means the Fed's going to possibly raise rates or scale back on the possibility of cutting rates anytime soon. But then the market reversed course. So on Friday, gap down after the huge jobs report, and then boom, into the green, solid day. I think it's 5 weeks in a row to the upside for the S&P. And then today we have the CPI numbers, and it was a tad hotter than expected. People want to kind of see inflation either in line or going down. The fact that it was higher, you would think, we have the Fed meeting, which is starting today. They're going to have their announcement 2 o'clock tomorrow with the press conference at 2:30. Does this mean that the expectations for a possibility of a rate hike are going to start going up? Right now, it looks like, so it's pretty much a 99.9% probability that the Fed keeps rates the same at their the statement tomorrow, and then into next year, it looks like May, and that the possibility of rate cuts starting in May continue to rise. So we'll have to see how how Fed Chair Powell spins this. Hopefully, he's not too hawkish, kind of keeps things a not too hot, not too cold scenario, and I think the market can find at least some support chop here between 460 and the upper Bollinger Band. I think it's 463.83 on the SPY. Let's see. We came right up to 463.93. Let's see. Yeah, upper Bollinger Band is 463.08. So probably a chop around there in the next day or two, and then hey, maybe we can head higher into 465 and possibly higher into the end of the year. Stocks hit, well, the S&P hit highs not seen since March 2022 yesterday. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. And then last is the 2K challenge. So, there's a couple of folks who've been here since almost the inception of this community, which is back in 2011, 2012. But back then, I posted a lot on Investor Hub, which a lot had to do with small caps and micro caps, things like that. And then back, I think it was January 2012, I started posting a 2K account, and I took it from 2K up to it was 250,000, something like that. That's not really the point, but the point is after I did that, a lot of folks have been asking to have kind of a reiteration of that that setup. So it's been tough. I think the last year and a half, I'm not saying I don't have conviction on my trades, but I need to have some conviction in the market too, because I think when you have conviction in your position and the market, it's it kind of helps pave the way for better probability of success. So I kind of feel like right now, pending any crazy black swan event or an escalation in the Middle East or in Europe, I think there's a good setup here for some names into 2024. So that being said, I put out the tweet last Friday. So I'm just trying to work out the details. I was hoping to have a post out today. It's probably going to be out tomorrow. First off, it's going to be limited to seniority, people who've been here the longest. What's happened in the past, and some of the names that I trade on my 2K challenge might be somewhat illiquid. So if that's the case, and you see sometimes when I post a trade, the ask just disappears. So a lot of folks can't get the same entry I get. And then not only that, the market makers will push the ask up. The stock might move up a little bit based on that volume. And then 20 minutes later, the ask is lower than where it was 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes ago based on nothing. There was no change in the underlying stock. It's just the volume on the option side, the call side, the market makers take advantage of it. So it could be frustrating when you're trying to follow, and especially if the stock's not moving in a rapid manner in the direction that I'm playing for, could be difficult. So I kind of want it to be where we kind of keep things small, and allow an opportunity for everybody to take advantage, as opposed to someone going out and clearing out the ask with 100 contracts or so on and so forth. So I'm trying to figure that all out. We'll see how that all plays out. Some folks would say play some liquid names like Apple or Google, but my forte, or a lot of how I trade, is not. I think when everybody's looking at the same name for the same direction, that's not usually the way to make money. You need to find names, undiscovered names that maybe are misunderstood, things like that. And I think that's the best opportunity to make money when you're trading options, at least in my opinion. And that's what I've done over the years, and I'll continue to do. So unfortunately, those names most times are somewhat illiquid, or the options are not the most heavily traded. And when there's illiquid names and you have a lot of volume coming in, there's opportunity for these market makers to take advantage. So I don't want to see that either. So I got to figure it out before I do it. And then I posted I was going to start the 18th, but the holiday, and then next week's the holiday with Christmas on the Monday. So I'll probably start on the 26th. So I'll have an update there. So I apologize. I know I've sent some emails to folks. People have messaged. I'll get that all out there. But first and foremost, it's going to be on a seniority basis. Whoever's here the longest, those will have first dibs, and then I'll figure out the quantity that will be eligible, and then we'll figure that all out. And if there's any issues, you can message and email, and we'll work those out. But that's the 2K challenge. I think one time I'm trying to think back back then, but it was interesting times. So I think that's it, folks. VKTX 1822. That's great. Here's Intuitive Surgical 321. At some point, I'll lock some of those in. Clear Secure. You looking better. Going to need this to start really heading to the upside. Fiverr, which looked like it was going to break out yesterday. Now here 26.46, and a couple other names on my catch-up list. Gilead, right? So Gilead, I think, is still down on the year. That started to rally yesterday. I was looking for some calls, but I have too much risk on. Biogen. At some point, Biogen is going to head to 260, 270, 280. So I've been watching that one. So at some point, I'll add some positions in some of these bio names. I've kind of been putting those to the wayside and trading some of these other tech names. But yeah, that's it, folks. What else we have? Rare. Oh, Rare. Ultragenics, right? Another one of those names I used to like back in the day. I should say used to like back in the day. I talk about these drug companies that come out with some of these, these studies that treat rare disorders or, improve the quality of life for somebody. And, Rare is one of those companies that is looking for solutions for folks who have afflictions that are, there's not a huge populace for it. And here they are looking to find solutions for it. So it's a great company. And then you hope they can come with some breakthroughs, make money for shareholders, and make money, and then obviously great outcomes for patients. Upgraded this. What was it? Wells Fargo. Oh, Wells Fargo yesterday came out with an overweight rating, $72 price target, and then J.P. Morgan keeps their overweight rating, $74 price target. That's another name I'll be watching in the coming days. That's it, folks. Let's have a great day. Thanks for listening. Rock and roll.